Your hosts are The Great Order and No White Guilt. And this is, of course, the after party. The crown winner of last week is Zero Talent, financially gifting $55. Thank you so much, dear brother. A big congratulations to you. In second place, very close, Mrs. Jess Horse, financially gifting $50. 50. Thank you so much, sweet sister, for everything you do as well. And congratulations. Financially gift on Entropy, which will be up in a moment at a cost of 15% to you. Watch the stream over there. Vote on questions. Ask your questions in the question widget. Or you can financially gift over on Cash App. The URLs for both of those are down in the description. Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with all of our guests on the after party. Today, we have Karissa and Sarah of Hearth and Helm on tap. How exciting is that? Karissa and then Sarah, please introduce yourselves to our esteemed community. Tell them where they can find you. And then the one and only Mr. Jared George will take us into the conversation. Karissa, oh, you're muted. There you go.
Sorry about that. Always forget to do the unmute. My name's Karissa. I co-host Hearth and Helm with Sarah, and we're happy to be on today.
Nice. Sarah, unmute as well. Don't forget.
Thank you for that. Hello. Yes, Sarah Dye here. Thank you so much for having us on. Karissa and I, as she said, we host Hearth and Helm, which is a podcast with a focus on reviving folk vitality. We talk about a wide range of topics such as natural health, homesteading, intentional child rearing, just intentional living in general. And we've been doing that for about, a year and a half now, I'd say, Karissa. And yeah, I'm a mother of 3 children. I homeschool and happy to be on. I'm excited to get into some of the topics you guys want to talk about today.
Yeah, we have a lot of people who are always interested in the kinds of things that you share. And some of you may know Sarah's been here a couple of times. It's Karissa's first time on the after party. Karissa, don't feel bad. I do this every week for Jason, 3.5 years, and I still forget to unmute sometimes. It's just, it's like a rite of passage doing these things. But
I was muted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it would be ironic if I was muted then. I double checked, but you don't know. Sometimes you think you click it and you miss it. But anyway, the first time we spoke to you, Sarah, was a little over a year ago in June of last year. And I know we, every time someone is on the after party for the first time, we like to hear about their background, about what woke them up, how they got to doing what they're doing. So all of the things that you two do together and what you stand for, we want to get into all of that. But Karissa, since it is your first time here, feel free to take some time and let people know, of course, as appropriate to knowing we're in a public forum, to protect your loved ones and your family, but what your upbringing might have been like, what woke you up to the attacks on our peoples, what were some of the catalysts to that, where did you go, where did you know where to turn, what did you find, and how did you eventually end up to the kind of advocacy that you do today?
No, it's always a great question. I think it's always interesting to find out how people get where they get in the white positive movement. But I've been white positive now for about 11 years. I think to a degree, we're all kind of born white positive. It's just when a lot of the programming comes in and we get just kind of indoctrinated by the propaganda against our people. But the pivot, and when I say that because I think of things from my upbringing that had happened, that looking back, I see that natural instinct was there, but a lot of the programming told me no. But I would say that the pivotal point of when I started questioning a lot of things was my sophomore year of high school. I had a history teacher that was very much about presenting all angles of history and kind of presented you with things and you were able to come up with your own conclusions. And we were studying just different points of history, and we read excerpts from just different contexts that are famous yet kind of forbidden. And this is going back to 2006, and I decided to go to my local library and read into some of these topics a little bit further. And I wouldn't say that necessarily made me white positive, but that brought me to question a lot of the status quo of things. Really, my white positive journey happened moving to Chicago. I was born and raised down in Southern Florida, very small area, and I kind of naively wanted to experience the city and the enrichment and all of that. And I definitely got to experience it, and it brought me to where I'm at today. One of the big moments was I was this was in 2008, shortly after the 2008 election. I was in my first semester of college, and I was in an English class, and my professor was very anti-white, and we were reading literature, something not even pertinent to what he brought up, but randomly he just said, "Who here thinks the Confederate flag is racist?" And it was a very small class. I was the only one that didn't raise my hand because I grew up in South Florida. You know, everybody had them in their pickup trucks growing up and everything, and I instantly found myself having to defend myself, and it was almost like, you know, piranhas on a pork chop, and I was the pork chop. But so that kind of also planted that seed a little bit. And then shortly, about a year later, was when I met my husband, and he had already been in the white positive movement for quite a few years before that. And I think just naturally women kind of start to follow suit with their partners as they get more acquainted. And he kind of just nurtured a lot of the thoughts that I already had, but I finally had somebody to tell me that I wasn't crazy, or I wasn't some certain label that, you know, the anti-whites like to put on us, and just kind of fostered those thoughts. And, you know, here I am.
Was there anything when you first met your husband that was challenging or outside of what you'd come to expect, or was it all what you said, where it was just basically more comforting, just confirming, oh, like, oh my God, I'm not crazy, sort of thing?
Well, I think there's some aspects when you start going down the rabbit hole and getting awoken to different things that are a little bit difficult to kind of recognize. But he never forced a lot of it on me. It was, you know, just take note of these different things and just for yourself come to your own conclusions. And it just kind of naturally happened. It's hard to kind of dispel a lot of the anti-white narrative once you're awoken to who's behind a lot of the anti-white narratives. It's kind of uncanny to not be able to see it. So he just kind of let me kind of come to my own conclusions with it. But it was definitely when I just had different thoughts of just a lot of the divisions you see in big cities like Chicago and everything, that he said, no, that's natural to kind of feel that way, that you necessarily don't want to partake in certain things or go down certain neighborhoods or do certain things. That's a very natural thing. It's not making you this certain label to go and do that.
Mm-hmm. Aside from that incident in the classroom, were there times you can remember when your peers were just going along with the programming, and you, even before you knew some of this, it was just kind of like your instincts were going in this direction, so you stuck out a little bit, or were ostracized, or were questioned by just friends in your peer group in high school, college?
Well, when I was in high school, when I talked earlier about, you know, checking out some of these forbidden, famous books, you know, at first I kind of did just to be edgy and, you know, be like, oh, I want to make a scene. But once I got into college, I went to art school, regrettably. But I definitely pushed a lot of the status quo in that. I didn't tiptoe around a lot of things, and a lot of things I probably would not have been able to get away with now. I kind of, now I probably would have been kicked out of art school at that point, but just using a lot of forbidden things that are not able to be questioned now. And it's really crazy when you think about, even back when I was in high school to college, how much the dynamics have changed within a little over 10 years.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty remarkable you had that teacher. You know, if anything, we usually hear it's the opposite. The teachers are pushing anti-white things, not the Confederate one, but the first one you mentioned about the books. Do you have any idea of what happened to that teacher, if they're still at that school, or do you not know?
I have no idea. She, oddly enough, you know, had an ethnic last name, which was a little shocking. given that I think she married outside of her own tribe. And I thought that was kind of interesting how she would plant a lot of those seeds with people. But I think also she just really wanted people to know the facts. And I have often wondered what happened with her, because honestly, a lot of the things that she presented to the class, I would not fly now, not with, how they're trying to push critical race theory and just a lot of the things that they're doing. I do often wonder, though. I've tried looking her up, but she's got kind of a common name too, to where it's 1,000 people kind of pop up with that. So I have no idea where she's at now, but I have to kind of thank her, because it's, definitely was like I said, what kind of planted the seeds to just start questioning things.
How did you get from that point where you're saying you met your husband and that was pivotal and the two of you were going down that path together, to where you said you wanted to do something public and present part of your lifestyle as a way to help people? We're going to talk about that. I know both of you, again, we spoke to Sarah about this first time she was on, couch the way that you live and what you present on your show as your revolt against the modern world, against all of the madness and the anti-white agenda. But maybe we can bridge it by, so how do you get from that to now where you are, where you were going to art school, you're in a city, now you have this different kind of lifestyle, but not only that, you're putting your face out there, you're going public. So what made that decision? And then we could start to bring Sarah into it. You tell us how the two of you met, linked up, decided to do Hearth and Helm, and then we'll get more into what Hearth and Helm is about.
Well, for me, for many years, I kind of wanted to put out some sort of content, but I didn't know necessarily what that content was. I was on Red Ice many years ago with Lana, and I had talked about doing a YouTube channel, and I had recorded some stuff, but I felt like there were particularly other women that were better suited to do that. And I didn't necessarily want to focus on politics, because a lot of the politics and the anti-white agenda can get a little, it can get a little blackpilling after a while. So I wanted to, there was something I wanted to do. There was a niche I wanted to fit that kind of could combine a lot of those things, that that could not just solely focus on politics and the anti-white agenda. It could form a lot of things like femininity and cooking and things, nature and herbs and things that just kind of make women, and also just, my spirituality of being part of the Native European spirituality, incorporating that in. And I just never knew necessarily how to do that. And I didn't really want to go about it myself. And there's also that risk too of going public, especially I didn't want to tiptoe around who I was, but also want to just kind of combine all these things into one bubble. And so I just kind of put it on the back burner and figured one day something would happen to where an opportunity would present itself. And Sarah and I eventually met, and just down the road, we did Hearth and Helm.
I want to jump in just really quickly as we get ready to bridge that, as Mr. George was putting it so eloquently, from your personal to how you all came together. And I just this point, because I think it's really important not to miss, very brief, is that this teacher, this so-called teacher, this indoctrinator that Karissa was faced with, asked the students to raise their hands if they thought, so the premise there was already that there was something evil about that. This was already in a negative cat. Not what is your opinion on this? And then when he or she got the response, Karissa said she had to defend herself. Defend herself? This is supposed to be a place of learning. It's supposed those students there should have been really, they should have said, really, that is interesting that you have a completely different view, that you've lived a completely different experience. Please tell us about it. It's just a different point of view. But no, you see here that this is anti-whiteism, a religion, folks. And she was expressing something that was antithetical to this religion. It was heretical to the religion of anti-whiteism, and therefore she was going to be excoriated. She was going to be attacked for it, which is what that means. She was going to be lambasted. She was going to be defamed. She was going to be held up as someone and something that is wrong and evil and immoral. Perfect evidence, all you need, that it doesn't matter how many degrees these people have. It doesn't matter what positions they hold. They're really just priests or rabbis or whatever, if you will, of anti-whiteism, and they are forcing it on us everywhere you go, of course, all entertainment, but even in those hallowed halls that used to be places of education now are places of indoctrination. But I'll pass it back so we can get right to your meeting, because that is going to be something that we're going to be able to move forward with.
Yeah, how did the two of you link up? How did you meet? If you're able to tell us publicly.
Well, I would maybe jump. I would like to jump in for a second and just say that how we met, Karissa, is such an awesome example of the importance of meeting IRL and not only confining your relationships to communicating online. While we all have, said this 1,000 times, but of course the age of the internet is great for networking and connecting, but it really, meeting somebody face to face is so amazing. And I really want to encourage people to equally focus on IRL in real life. If for those who don't know, you never know, meeting and connecting and community building. And even though we are, a handful of states away from each other, we make a point to get together, as often as we can. And maybe that looks like once every year, or maybe it's once every 2 years, but it's just so important, because when you finally meet someone who you've been talking with and kind of following and supporting online together for like a couple of years, it's always the same experience for me for the most part, which is that you feel like you've known this person your whole life. And interestingly for me, so we met at a gathering for like-minded people, specifically pagan, European folkish pagans who were gathered to worship and to celebrate community. And it was in the Eastern United States. And we met at that gathering, and we hit it off, and we totally clicked, and we were immediately talking about everything from culture and religion to child rearing and homesteading goals and all of this stuff. And it was only after we had been talking for some time that I realized that this was somebody who I had actually been following for a couple of years on Instagram. And I was like, oh, you're Karissa Doko, which is your former handle that you used. But so we hit it off and we clicked, and then we've kept in touch really well, and our friendship has continued to grow. And then it was after some time that we were talking. We're like, hey, you want to start a podcast? And Karissa was like, yeah, actually, I've been wanting to start a podcast for years and waiting for the right partner in it. So we did, and that's Hearth and Helm was born out of that. And we, I guess, just felt called to do something a little bit different in the white positive sphere, which was presenting, natural living topics, and again, just restoring folk vitality. And I love, Jared, the phrase that you kind of coined, learning in public. I like to use that too for a lot of what we do, because we don't ever claim to be like up on our high horse and saying we have all the information about how to live this like super holistic, perfect lifestyle. However, we have gained. Is there an echo? Is everything okay on the?
You sound good to me.
Yeah,
hear me?
we don't
Okay.
hear an echo.
Okay, thank you. We have, over the years, her and I have been passionate about these topics, so we have kind of picked up some knowledge along the way, and we wanted to share that. And we also just wanted to bring in guests and talk with them, and learn in public about these things, and kind of bring some light and exposure to these topics, which we feel like are so important for our people to take back our destiny, to win back our rightful destiny. We feel that we can't just be dropping our kids off at a daycare, setting them in front of a television screen all day long, feeding them complete junk food. We really need to reclaim our vitality. That's hugely important. It's just as important as having spiritual and religious draw as well. So that's how we met, and that's how we started Hearth and Helm. And I didn't know if Karissa, if you wanted to add to that at all about your experience, but pass it off to you.
No, it was funny, because when we did meet, somebody had told me you were there, and I had been wanting to meet you for a long time, because it was right around when that your doxing happened and everything. And I remember I went up to you and said, I really support your family, and just I find that it was very admirable how you guys were sticking by your guns and everything. And that's when I knew we had followed each other for a while, but I didn't know if you would know who I was, just with a lot of the support you had gotten from people. So So yeah, no, and then, you know, I've been following you for a while. So it was a lot of fun, and yeah, we just clicked, and you were definitely, you know, what, you know, filled that void of something that I was wanting to do for a while now with doing a podcast. And I love that what we do with Hearth and Helm, like she said, just trying to get our people healthy again, and inspire our folk as well to do greater. And again, not that we're holier than thou, we're learning too, but just be that inspiration for, you know, younger girls. That's one thing I wished when I was a little bit newer into the movement. There was there weren't many women doing anything. So it was, you know, that was another thing that really pushed me to want to make some sort of content, was try to, you know, help people along the way. And also just focusing on a lot of different things too, not just, like I said, the political realm of things, just, you know, motherhood and femininity and nutrition and things that we both find very passionate.
Yeah, and also I want to say that both of us have been through a really heavy duty dox and had our families attacked. You know, we've had anti-whites, both Chris and I have had anti-whites, you know, make this giant concerted effort to try to ruin our lives, to defame us, to slander us, to libel us, to terrorize us, and to mischaracterize us. And, you know, we are two women who are strongly in the belief of the ancient, beautiful European spiritual way. We are women who live close to the land. We are women who prioritize family. We take a strong stance in that our people need to stop doing the hookup culture and sleeping around and being promiscuous, that we need to be making strong, healthy families. And we have been through so much, both of us, with our doxes, that we wanted to put ourselves kind of out there, I guess, and say, no, what they are saying about us is not who we are. This is who we are. And I would say that was a strong part of why we wanted to do Hearth and Helm, was to say, no, this is who we are. This is our truth, and we will speak our truth, and we're not going to allow these people to get away with saying these terrible things about us and, you know, projecting onto us that which they want to believe that we believe or whatever. So
As tough
that's
as I'm
another
sure,
part of it.
I'm sorry. As tough as I'm sure it was at the time, would either both of you say that the doxing experience was a catalyst that actually prepared you to be a better public voice when you started your show?
For myself, yes and no, because my stance kind of was, you know, doxing only works once. Okay, you collected this information over a course of a time on my family and I. You released it. Okay, so now, I mean, not that I ever really hid, but I mean, now it's just out in the open, and you can say what you want about everything, and I can just kind of disprove what you said, because a lot of it was a lot of fallacies, by just showing that, I mean, we're just, you know, mothers and feminine women that just don't, I mean, we're white positive, and that's really what it is. It's not this, sometimes, I mean, I wish I was as maniacal as they want to say we are, because we're not. It's just funny, the things that they come up with. I mean, with both Sarah and my family, it's comical.
Oh, Sarah, I think you're
Oh,
muted.
you're muted.
Thanks, guys. I would say that yes, it did prepare me somewhat, because while I had formerly done a small amount of podcasting anonymously and had you know, maybe written a few articles here and there, I was very much anonymous. I was very much, you know, concerned about getting doxxed. I didn't want these people to target me like I've seen them target so many other people. And after we were doxxed, I didn't have a choice. It was like somebody had shown a huge spotlight on my family and I, and we you know, as we sold at the farmers market, which many are familiar with. But one thing I haven't really talked about in the past is how intense it was to be at farmers market selling vegetables, and to have cameras from like our local Fox News station and our local CBS News station in our faces, in front of our booth, just like filming us selling vegetables for their news stories about the quote unquote, you know, bad guys at the farmers market. And the controversial farmers and whatnot. And so these cameras were shoved in my face. I'd never chose to get in front of a camera. They were shoved in our face. I had reporters showing up on our property and had to tell them, please leave. I have nothing to say to you. And for a long time, rejected emails from New York Times and local Fox News station and all of these stations asking for our side of the story, which we know what those things turn out to be, which is it's never that they want to tell our side of the story. It's that they want to get little samples and bits of what you say and then link together to confirm their narrative, right? So I had refused all these interviews. And finally, it got to a point where I just, I talked to my husband and I was like, I think that I should just go ahead and take one of these interviews with a script that I draft that I record so that they can't control and manipulate what I say. And so I did. And it was the most bizarre feeling to be outside of my public library with a Fox News camera in my face. It was the first time I had ever done anything like that. And it was very difficult, but it needed to be done. And fortunately, our local Fox News station actually aired what I said. And it was pivotal. It was a game changer because, I denied what they were accusing me of being. And I told the truth. And I, also stood up for myself and my family. And so, yeah, I would say that did prepare me in a way. And it was like, hey, if I'm going to be on camera and if I'm going to be on camera for anti-whites, if these anti-whites are going to be taking my picture and filming me all day, every weekend, then fine. Like, go ahead. Like, I suppose, like, come on, Karissa, let's go on camera and say what we really believe. So, yeah, that's a good question, Jared. It's a very good question.
Well, we're glad you're here. And even though I've spoken to you a few times, I've never quite heard that story. It sounds like it was a trial by fire. And it's beautiful. And I just want to say quickly, just to point out for people listening too, we want to hear a lot more from you, but just very briefly, my 2 cents is I love what you both do because it's holistic. You've probably heard me say that word a lot before. I agree. I'm not myself much into politics. I didn't enter this to be a news analyst or a political analyst. That's not really my strength or how my mind works. It's not to say that anyone with any little opinion should just blurt it out. We clearly have a lot of that online, but obviously you've done enough in your own lives to prepare yourselves to get to a point where you had some experiences, young mothers, young families, and you're doing these traditional things. And you have something to say, not so much as you were both mentioning that none of us feel that we have it all figured out. If you waited until then, none of us would be doing anything. But the action of stepping out and presenting what you're doing as a lifestyle, as this holistic, integrated system of how your beliefs work together, your practices, how you eat, how you raise your children, your relationships with your husbands, how all of these things and much more, they all mesh together into a lifestyle. And what we need is people who are providing role modeling and examples and learning together, like you said, Sarah, we're all doing, of these more salubrious, edifying, wholesome lifestyles. Because God knows the mainstream media, as you said, often presents the opposite. So, that it can't be overstated how important that is. And I don't want to take anything away from anyone. We certainly need the minds who can do it well and who are balanced about it to be able to frame news stories and things like that and what's going on in the world in a way we can understand it, in a way we can glean some lessons from it. But a lot of guys act like the news and politics analysis is the most important thing, or the alternative takes on history. Again, I don't want to pit anyone against anyone else, but for my money, I'll just say it's at least just as important to be doing the kind of things that you all are doing, the holistic presentation of a lifestyle, because most people out there aren't going to be spending hours and hours and hours of their free time a week doing, esoteric philosophy readings or, getting down to the nitty gritty about geopolitics and how what's going on in Russia and the Ukraine might have a domino effect in Europe and then affect the United States or things like this. through all the madness that's going on, we need to live our day-to-day lives, and we need to figure out together how to do this in a better way so that we're healthier, our children are as healthy as they can be. So the kind of thing that you're doing, it can't be overstated in my mind how important that is and how important it is to show up. And it's very easy to criticize social media, and we know what the criticisms are about how it kind of inflames the ego and it makes people just share nonsense, and it kind of creates a cult of self. But this frame could apply to everything that we do. I think the lesson there, and reflecting on what you do and what we all try to do, is that the mechanisms of how social media work, in a sense, are neutral. It's the people and the intention of the people using it and what they present that really gives it the lifeblood. It's the same thing with a city. Like you said, Karissa, I know cities get a bad rap in our circles, but there's a lot of beautiful things about cities. Cities as such aren't necessarily a bad thing. I have lived in cities, and there's some regards in which I miss living in a city. I don't live in a city right now. I love where I live. I live in a more semi-rural area. It's beautiful. It's not cities as such. It's the people in the city. It's kind of the point of the whole thing we do, right? It's the kind of people, it's the character of the people. So we are trying to all walk each other and our families to a better point of how we're connected to our history, our heritage, and how we can be the highest character people we can be, and represent the best of our instincts of our people, the European peoples. And that's the work. That when people feel despair and they say, what can I do? Everything looks so down and it seems so hopeless. Most people, this is what's in their purview to do. This is what's in our power to do. If you don't want to feel despair, like you're flailing around and you're starting to question, why am I even here? It's this kind of thing that most people can plug into. When you feel like you're going up against the powers that be in the regime, most of the time you're just going to end up banging your head against the wall and return back to that place where you feel hopeless. So all the kind of community things that we're all doing, it all fits together. It's very much in line with Jason and I, what we do together and separately, and what brought us together. So I just wanted to take those few moments to kind of put that in perspective, frame it, and give you both kudos. But why don't you start to tell us, you call your everything that you do, we're going to get down into some of the different parts of it, your revolt against the modern world. Sarah, when you were on, as I said, in June, which is archived on the afterparty.tv, everybody, you gave your response to that. I know we've already kind of touched on this already, so if there's not much to say, we can get beyond, but just to put it to the ball in your court, Karissa, do you have anything to say about like the bigger frame before we get into like the specific topics that you hit of how what you present is your revolt against the modern world?
Well, and I do remember when Sarah had said that back on that stream, and she kind of did really hit a lot of the high points of it. But I think at the end of the day, we can't always necessarily control what's going on outside, but we can control what's happening within our families and our folk and what we choose to consume. And I feel like family right now is the most revolting, or the biggest revolt we can. How's that Evola quote go? Traditionalism is the most radical, highest form of, I can't remember the exact quote, but somebody probably knows exactly what it is. But, and I think that is what rings true. It's just bringing forth those traditional lost arts that people have forgotten throughout the strip malls and shopping malls that have been built in the consumerist mindset. And they've forgotten a lot of where they've come from, that we are people that have a faith. We have a common faith. We have a common ancestry. We have skills that have gotten lost and forgotten throughout this whole anti-white agenda, and they kind of want us to forget them. So we feel that bringing back a lot of these older and more traditional ways of things is kind of our revolt to get our folk back healthy and just having a healthier mind, body, and soul.
All right, so why don't we start to dig down deeper into that? You could take this as food. Jason and I are both into that as well, about being healthy. but even more broadly about the messages we get. But you said in your notes, removing toxins and putting in the good stuff. You use the word nutrient dense, especially with food, and I definitely can relate to that. I try to do that myself. So we'll continue with you, Karissa, for a moment, and then hear from Sarah. But what are some of the things that you've shared on your show, or that people that listen to your show have asked you about, or you've helped them with, in terms of removing toxins from your life and making sure that you're putting in the good stuff, the nutrition, whether it's food or otherwise?
Well, one thing that Sarah and I have talking about soon on a stream is endocrine disruptors, which are just, your skin being your largest organ. A lot of what we're putting on our bodies disrupts our whole system, leads to leaky gut and different things that, we can, you can do a lot of your own research with, but that's one thing I'm trying to do. I'm starting my own little herbal body care type thing of making my own things, of using organic quality ingredients to get people away from things like Bath and Body Works products and a lot of the toxic things that you're getting, because that is disrupting our whole system of things. That's one thing that we do. Also, when it comes to nutrition, we definitely don't follow the USDA's food pyramid guideline. We're all about raw milk and unpasteurized eggs and liver and our healthy fats. Not blaming. They like to blame things that sugar and other things did, and blaming it on healthy fats. We're all about promoting that kind of stuff. Fermentation. A lot of the taboo things that they're telling us not to consume is usually what you should be consuming. I mean, even just with the current sphere of things right now, with what we should be injecting into our bodies and just what we should be consuming, it's something that we're very much against and trying to make people aware of, to see other sides, because the mainstream isn't going to tell you these things. They want us to be sickly, both mentally and physically. So we just are really trying to encourage people to research these different things, to go try, support your local farmers, such as Sarah being a farmer herself. She's somebody that people should be going out supporting, cutting out the middleman, keeping our money within our own folk, and we're just trying to bring awareness to a lot of that kind of stuff.
Sarah, do you find a lot of young women, especially, asking about the alternative to the mainstream beauty products? I've heard a lot, as you said, Karissa, about endocrine disruptors, and I've seen it in women in my family, and even men now more. It's, right now we're supposedly under a pandemic, but it seems like that's been a pandemic for a time over, I don't know, the past 10 years. I keep hearing about more cases of autoimmune disease, and it's insane that this isn't a bigger thing. I agree, it has to be environmental toxins and toxins in our, what we slather on our bodies every day. But do you get a lot of young women asking you your advice about natural ways and older ways to, take care of their hair and skin and anything that you're going to want to do, but not be just buying this stuff off the shelf where you can't pronounce half the ingredients? And your skin, everyone forgets, your skin everything you rub on your skin gets absorbed into your body.
Yes, exactly. We do. We also get a lot of questions about infertility, which I think, talking about a pandemic or an epidemic among our people, infertility is a big one. I mean, everyone listening right now, I just want you to ask yourself, how many people do you know or have you heard of who have been trying to conceive for years and are having trouble conceiving? I can think of at least a handful, and I'm sure Karissa could too. And endocrine disruptors are a major cause of that, because it affects fertility in men and women. And again, like, this comes back to what we can control and what we can't control. If there are pollutants in your environment around you where you live that you cannot control, then you have to just try to focus on what you can control and the things that we eat. Even if you're on a limited budget, there's like a couple of key things I would recommend. Like, if you can't switch over completely to an all organic, all grass-fed diet, I would highly recommend that you, at the very least, look into raw milk. It's one of the best nutritious nutrient dense foods that is available. There are farms all over the country. I know that there's a lot of controversy about raw milk and the legalities of it, but in almost all states, you can access it through like a farm share, a herd share program. And people are welcome to reach out to Hearth and Helm for information on that later. We can get you some links of where to find that. But, you know, making small changes, the things that you can control. So yes, Jared, we get a lot of questions about fertility and the, you know, just all of those pollutives. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to help people figure out how to get healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we try to encourage people too to, you know, work with their immune system with things with turning to herbs, and not necessarily, you know, encouraging that fevers are a good thing with your children in childhood, and turning to more of the natural options of turning to, you know, things that you can grow in your backyard to make herbal tinctures, and turn to herbs, things that our ancestors turned to help with a lot of ailments as well. I just wanted to throw that in there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
That's something I find interesting, is that you've mentioned that a couple of times. Is that something that you do, Karissa?
Yes, I'm starting, I grow a lot of my own herbs. I'm starting a body care type business with, it's called Edelweiss Apothecary. So far I've only got an Instagram, but I'm going to get it on all the places. But yeah, just a lot of the herbal extracts are coming from my garden, and just like we were saying, you know, your skin is your largest organ. So I think it's the most important one to, that people often forget about. A lot of it they think is internally of what you're consuming in the sense of food, but I think it's also important to take note of what you're actually putting on your body as well.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in really, really quickly because I wanted to go back to what you were saying about body products, and how you've even had some conversations with men about that too. And, you know, that's important to realize, like most of the just like general products you buy at the grocery store or whatever, from body wash to shaving cream and whatnot, even shampoos and conditioners, they have phthalates in them. They have, you know, like you said, all of these ingredients you can't pronounce, and those are absolutely toxic. I mean, there are plenty of natural products out there now. Fortunately, people have started to become more aware of this. So there are a lot of options for purchasing products at the store. However, buying from somebody like Karissa and the business that she's starting, Edelweiss Apothecary, is awesome. Like, she makes her own sunscreen, for instance.
That's great.
Yeah, so like sunscreens have so many toxins in them, and if you use, like, what is it, zinc that you put in your sunblock. So you know, it's amazing. There's a lot of options out there. It's always best to support what we call folkish economy. So before buying a natural product off the grocery store shelf, consider purchasing from a small business, from one of our folk. And as far as those body products go, you know, for women, a lot of times I find like women don't really need to be purchasing all of the makeup and body and like beauty products that they do, because natural beauty is always preferable. But things like olive oil, coconut oil, wholesome ingredients, and that sort of thing. And then for women who really, really want to like just do some makeup, like for a special occasion or something, which I like to, you know, I went years being oh gosh, for lack of a better word, kind of a hippie, and, you know, refused makeup, refused all of these things. And now I find that, you know, I like to put some makeup on every now and then, but finding it that's like a natural kind is a thing. Like, there are a few companies out there, and I'm not going to mention their names on the show, but if people want to reach out to Hearth and Helm, if they're looking for, you know, actual makeup, because Chris, I don't think you do makeup, right? You do like health and beauty products, but not stuff like makeup.
Correct.
Makeup, right?
No, I don't. No, yeah. I haven't dove into makeup.
Yeah, but I'm excited about your new business venture. So you're being humble and sweet, but I wanted to kind of plug that a little bit more, because I want everybody to go follow what you're doing and boost your business. It's super cool.
And hey, if for both of you, let's see, Nathaniel, Natarific, and Matitude, just if you all don't know it, because they just did this, they just revealed it this past Sunday. They are building it, and it's up, and it's working right now. I can show a search engine for folks who are white positive. Those would be the only kind of people who will be allowed on there. You folks will be able to show up there. They'll be able to type in what they're looking for, and then it will bring up our businesses, white positive people's businesses. It's really amazing. I can share it really quickly, but I'll throw the conversation back to you all so we can keep rolling, and I'll just put it on the screen so that you all can see. And I'm sure Natarific, Nathaniel, Matitude, they'll be listening and watching, and they'll want to reach out. If you want your business on there, they'll happily put it on there, because you all are both obviously white positive.
Yes, actually, I wanted to give a shout out to Natarific and say hello and thank you. I just touched base with him on Telegram the other day. Super excited about the project. I did check it out. We shared it on Hearth and Helm. It is so cool. He also did list our farm on there. And I wanted to also just say, like, you know, does everybody remember when these crazy riots were going on last summer? Like, I mean, how can you forget, right? All of this like imagery coming out of these cities just slashed and burned, and then you would see these huge pieces of plywood where people had spray painted on the boarded up windows of some of these businesses, and they would say this particular ethnic group owns this business, right? Like they were trying to discourage the vandalism by claiming what like racial or ethnic group owned the business. And so it's like for anybody who's listening to this who's not quite fully awakened, and you know, if you're still feeling like alarmed at all that, oh my gosh, you know, white positive businesses, it's like, give me a break. Like everybody wants to say that identity politics or having an identity is bad when it comes to us and our people. However, every other group is allowed to, every other group is encouraged, and it's promoted, and it's seen as a beautiful thing for other people to have pride in who they are and where they come from and in their people, except for us. And so, you know, it's time that we go ahead and take our own side. It's coming down to a matter of life or death in many cases, you know. And so I love the project that Natarific is doing, and we are very proud to be listed on there. Absolutely.
Yeah, I saw that and I loved that as well. And it's so easy too to support these white positive businesses. I mean, really, even your entertainment can be white positive. I mean, like what Jared's doing with his musical projects. I mean, there's people making cartoons and there's comic books, and I mean, there's so much stuff out there for people to be able to, you know, kind of cut out the anti-white rhetoric that could be getting into their homes. I mean, and then you've got Jason's books. I mean, you've got so much great stuff out there now than that wasn't there a long time ago. So I think it's really great that they made basically a database for people to be able to look into this stuff.
It's a fantastic example again of how everyone is doing their part and it's coming together as this whole. And it's, you know, everyone's following their talents and their passions, but it fits like puzzle pieces together and plugs into a whole way of life. And that's kind of the addendum to what I said earlier when I took a couple of moments to speak, is we're not doing politics, because sometimes people say, especially with women, let's be honest, oh, you know, some people say women shouldn't show up and comment. And I've said to guys, get a grip. We're not doing politics. We're doing life. Wake up. We're doing life. We're doing life together. This is life. We're creating a culture, as you said, arts, businesses, all kinds of things. And what you're doing is great because you're showing your moms, you're devoted to your families, but you're working as well, but it's a very different kind of work than what we think of in the modern world. And it really is, it does go back, and some people forget this, it does go back to the way our people lived for a long time. There was this again, holistic swirl of responsibilities with the family, wares that you would sell to sustain yourself and trade value with other people so that you could eat and, you know, have an economy. And men and women both had roles that it was all a little bit more of a piece. And so I think that you're also modeling that if you have certain talents and you want to share them with the world, it's not an either or kind of situation. You're integrating a way of working, and you're still doing what you're doing in this way that you raise your family, this very wholesome way that you raise your family. And there's so many things we could talk about. I can't believe it's almost been an hour. We're going to have you back. It's the herbs stuff alone. Again, I'm interested in that. And I find that fascinating, but I think we should move on. We'll talk about it a little more, and then Jason is keeping an eye on the chat, and if you have a little more time, we'll take some chat questions as they come up. But I know it's a huge topic, but I know you guys wanted to hit on crafts as well, talking about what I just mentioned regarding just being self-sufficient and doing things to provide for your family, and or have things to sell or trade with other people, just create things of value, not just buying plastic off of a shelf in a box store. So I know you might have to pick and choose because you both, this is a big topic and it's something, it's multifaceted. You're both involved in, but what are some things you might like to highlight, or I don't know, maybe common questions you get, or a takeaway that you want to give people regarding that homestead lifestyle, the traditional crafts and old ways that you've learned, things that you think might need to come back? Maybe Karissa, we'll start with you, and then Sarah.
For myself, I think a lot of my crafts more lie in the kitchen. I'm very much into going back to nutrition a little bit, with properly preparing foods that are now deemed to be bad for you. For instance, having a sourdough starter, I think, is a really great start for somebody. To the art of bread making alone is not only a very therapeutic technique, but also very ancestral to what our ancestors did.
Yes.
With preparing that kind of stuff. And so for instance, gluten in bread has gotten such a bad reputation, but it's how it's prepared. We should be soaking our grains and looking into grains that also are not like einkorn is one of the most ancient grains that is very easily digestible because it has not been genetically modified. Stuff like that, through fermentation I love just experimenting with different things, and I'm always open to share a lot of that stuff too with people, with that kind of stuff. Also, making the preserving herbs, not going back to the herb thing, but preserving herbs is another great thing that I know Sarah and I both love to do, with making it into herbal tinctures and salves, things that are, again, going on our body or in our body to help sustain our health. That's more where I feel like my crafts lie, as to where I know Sarah does, a lot with textiles and weaving and everything. But
Do you make teas, Karissa, with the herbs ever?
Oh yeah, definitely. Actually, I have tea outside. I did sun tea today, so yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan, and I'm familiar. I was just having this conversation with someone in our spheres on Twitter today as well about wheat and the unfortunate state of conventional American wheat. It's almost like that is, I don't want to make too much of a stretch. I don't know if it sounds cheesy, but bread in America is kind of a metaphor for a lot of things going on. And you're absolutely right. There's this, I watch it with bread, but if I do, it's going to be something like a sourdough or something sprouted and the kind of grains that you're talking about. And it's an entirely different kind of thing. It shouldn't even, standard American bread, it should have a different name. It shouldn't even be thought of as the same thing. But Sarah, your crafts. I think you might have to unmute.
Oh, I think my screen was frozen. Can you guys, am I
good.
with you?
Yeah, You're good now.
Okay, sorry. Everything froze for me there for a second.
It's all right. That's the tech. It happens.
Did I miss a question or?
Oh, I was just saying, we were just wrapping up with what Karissa was speaking about with the tinctures. And then I was asking about your crafts or things you might get asked a lot about, or things you think we need to bring back.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I've long been interested in traditional crafts, traditional skills. I suppose, my gosh, I mean, 15 years or so now, I've been pretty deeply interested in it. My husband and I, in our first years together, used to attend these really cool gatherings. They're called primitive skills gatherings, where people from all over the country would show up to these hands-on workshops. It was a week of camping and hands-on workshops on everything from tanning deer skins into leather using the brains from the animal, to harvesting wild materials to create sturdy and functional yet beautiful natural baskets, to learning how to cook over a fire using nothing but like stones, sticks, and knives, how to preserve meats without canning, things like that. Just all of these amazing primitive skills. And so I would say that my interest definitely grew a lot with that. And at one of those gatherings was where I first learned to spin wool into yarn. And for years I had been crocheting and making like just simple hats with like acrylic yarn from the craft store, and it hadn't really dawned on me. I was very young at the time. I was probably 18 or 19, but or 20, something like that. But it hadn't really dawned on me where yarn came from. Like, where did it originate? What was yarn? Well, the first yarn was people taking wool or, fleece from animals or plant materials such as like hemp or linen. And of course, silkworms in the case of silk, and spinning it into thread, and so it was a really good experience. And I learned to spin yarn there on a spinning wheel and also on a drop spindle. And that was life-changing. And I would say that kind of started me on a journey of my interest in textiles. I had the opportunity to learn how to weave on a floor loom a couple of years later. And then it moved into, well, what gives our yarn color? And do I want to be always using yarn that's dyed with chemical dyes? Well, no. Well, guess what? There's all of these amazing plants all around us that you can dye yarn with. So yeah, I definitely have a passion for textiles. For years, my husband and I had Shetland sheep here at our little farm. We don't any longer, but I'd love to have sheep again someday. It's they're really amazing creatures. But yeah, weaving, I love to weave baskets. Now, unfortunately, being busy with the garden and homeschooling and with the sons, I don't have as much time to focus on crafting as I would like to, but I also just acknowledge that there are seasons of life. And
Yeah.
right now I'm in the season of, just putting everything I can towards my children, which is the most valuable and amazing investment that I could ever possibly make. And it's absolutely, one of my highest purposes in life, I feel, and also one of the most amazing gifts in life, is just being a mother to 3 amazing, beautiful boys. But they're all interested in crafting too. So they're very interested in like bushcraft and, everything from trying to make sharp points with stones, like Paleolithic style spearheads, and building debris forts, and weaving as well. So yeah, I'm passionate about crafts, and I would like to get back into that. I know that we set out with Hearth and Helm, we wanted to do some more tutorials, but honestly, that with the nature of what we're doing right now, I apologize that we haven't been very, very consistent with putting out content, but I think that most people who follow Hearth and Helm just understand that.
Mhm.
And I would say too, when the weather cools down and when both of our gardens are put to bed, I think, don't you agree, Karissa? We tend to do more content in the colder months because we have a little bit more free. That's the nature of kind of a homesteading life. You have free
Yeah,
time in the winter, so.
I was thinking about that the other day, how we, definitely do a little bit more in the colder months. And I had a baby this year too, so that was a little bit of a setback too. So that was,
Congratulations.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
before we get to any questions from the chat, I just want to make sure, is there anything, I know there's, as I said, there's plenty of other things that we were discussing before the show that we could pick up on. And we definitely have other things to talk about for another time with both of you on. But given what we've discussed today, is there anything you want to make sure for a few minutes that we hit on that maybe we haven't yet, you want to make sure people hear before we get to some of the chat questions?
I guess just to kind of piggyback on the craft conversation really quickly, I wanted to add that for young women, and for men, but I guess I'm speaking more to the young women right now. But before you're married, or right after you get married, before you conceive children, is an ideal time to pursue a craft, and find what you're interested in, find what you love, and make sure that you're spending time on learning the skills that you want to learn, because as you know, once you create a family, it's really nice, and it's really amazing for some of the moms that I know who are able to have little kind of cottage businesses on the side to kind of help
Yeah.
financially support the family. And you know, hey, maybe that looks like you have a little flock of hens and you sell eggs on the side, or you have a little extra produce and maybe you sell some fermented products or pickles that you make, or maybe you sew. We have a great need for more for good seamstresses and sewers right now. Yeah, I would love to collaborate with a seamstress or a tailor on creating garments with my hand-woven cloth at some point in time. Just putting that out there. So yeah, like for women out there, I know there's a lot of families, for instance, who they would like to be able to homeschool, but they feel like they can't afford for one of the parents to not have like a 9-to-5 job. And so that's just kind of something else we try to promote on Hearth and Helm, is like a cottage industry, something that a mother could do on the side. And that's very traditional. So
Exactly.
yeah, just kind of wanted to throw that out there.
Karissa, anything you wanted to make sure, a theme or topic that we hit on before we get to some of the questions?
I think just, a big thing that Sarah and I try to promote too is just when it comes to motherhood and homeschooling is trying to raise white positive kids in an anti-white world. I think that's an important thing for us all to do because it starts at home. So I just,
yeah. And well, I just wanted to say, Karissa, we just recently recorded a stream. Oh, I guess it's been about a month ago now, with Clarion Wakefield, who I actually met through hearing her on some of your streams, and a fellow white positive mother. We had a really good conversation about screens and children, and how important it is for parents to be very discriminatory about what your children are watching. And that's definitely something that we want to make sure people aren't afraid to put their foot down about with their kids. People are often afraid that they're not going to be a friend to their kid, or their kid's going to rebel or not like them or something. But it's so important because the indoctrination is so strong. People are making millions and even billions of dollars on producing these films and these movies just to indoctrinate your children. And you have to reject that and seek out quality content, which we have an abundance of in the white positive community, to replace it with. And so, yeah, just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Karissa was saying with that.
Yeah.
Are we
No.
about that time where we're going to look at the chat and see what the people are asking about?
I think so. Karissa, were you about to say something?
No, I was going to just say real quick, when you were talking about the indoctrination, Sarah, one of my favorite things from that stream that we did do with Clarion was she had said, somebody's going to indoctrinate your children, it might as well be you. And I've actually quoted that quite a few times since that stream, just amongst people. That. And I thought it was just a very simple but yet straightforward quote. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And imagine that there are people who were white sympathetic before we came along, and before things really started getting white positive, and that actually bought into the meme pathogen that white people, we should never teach our children any of our ways, because if you do that, then you're brainwashing them. How many times have you heard that from folks who are older in the white sympathetic sphere? All the time. Is that you're brainwashing them if you tell them what to think and how to think and a view on the world. And it's totally an outrage. I argued against that for decades. Thank God that we're finally coming to the point where we realize, yes, we want to tell our children, we want to inoculate them. We want to tell them how to view the world that will benefit them, that will make them strong, that will make our people strong, and therefore make them strong again. Coming full circle. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. You still find people in the white sympathetic sphere that will still say, no, you just let them go out into the world and find things out for themselves. Well, they're finding them out from anti-whites. We have some wonderful financial gifts here. We're getting started with Joseph, financially gifting $2. Thank you so very much. And he writes here with the $2 to the good sir. Well, thank you so much, Joseph. I really appreciate that. We also have the great White Student Transmission, a great champion in service to White Wellbeing. God bless you, brother. $20 financial gift. And he writes, enjoying the interview, white positive energy, and a smile face. Thanks so much. It is absolutely white positive energy. I'm going to refresh that, and then I'll
Jason, I caught a couple of quick questions from the regular chat. Our friend Lovely Porridge was asking Sarah, Sarah, do you intend to write a book ever about your experiences?
Yes, I can't wait. I've been wanting to for 2.5 years now, ever since all this went down and happened. It's just a matter of finding time. It's a matter of making time. But yes, absolutely. I can't wait. I can't wait. I don't know if it'll be one book or multiple books. I also would love to make children's books. Though there's a lot of things I want to do and not quite enough time. So I don't know when, but yes, it will happen.
We have publishers now, as we were saying before. We have a whole culture and infrastructure and businesses that are there for you when you need them. But you already have an audience in, and sure more than this, but at least Lovely Porridge, he'll be first online. And another quick question, Mac and Liberty, who I know is a young woman who streams as well. You might be here, Mac and Liberty. You could put in the chat if you'd like. Might be here because of our friend Yiz. Yiz was on Imperium Art yesterday with Donald Kent and Nullis, and I love how they titled the show Yiz the Unifier, and I think that's great. As a moniker that should stick. As we know, Yiz is wonderful, active, and one of her strengths is she's a bridge. She's a communicator. She is so active and passionate about connecting different spheres, different adjacent spheres, and getting us all talking more, which I think is very important right now. We're at a critical moment in the world where a lot of people, I don't think I have to tell anyone, a lot of people are asking questions about what it is we've been spoon-fed in our education system in the mainstream. So maybe Mac and Liberty is here because of Yiz. At any rate, I know you're active on YouTube, and it's great to see you, and we really appreciate you being here. And she just asks, again, maybe speaking to the fact that she is a little new to our circles here. Great question for the ladies here, or if anyone else knows in the chat, please chime in. But she's asking, she would love to hear where she can follow more white positive female content creators. Is there anywhere to look for that, or any kind of maybe like a Telegram thread or group that posts a lot of women specific content? Sarah, the rite of passage, the mute button.
Oh goodness. I wanted to start by saying that while Hearth and Helm we've been inconsistent with doing streams and stuff, the one thing that Karissa and I both keep up with daily is our Telegram channel. So we are always trying to share white positive, feminine, other content creators and things like that on our Telegram channel. So that would be my first recommendation. There's also there's Feminine Not Feminist, which is a fun channel that often shares female white positive, oriented stuff. Of course, Philosophicat has put out some amazing content when it comes to talking about femininity and European heritage and things like that. I mean, my gosh, there's so many. Yes, absolutely. And there's just so many. There's another fantastic podcast, Links in the Shadows, does with her friend, who I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. They're in Europe, and they mostly focus on like folk tales and stuff like that. But it's from they're both women, and I mean, my gosh, the list is long.
That's Hearth of Europa, correct?
Yes, thank you. Hearth of Europa, and I believe that they're going to be coming on Hearth and Helm soon, so we'll have a really lively chat with them. But I love their podcast, and unfortunately, I'm going to apologize because I know that there's so many others, and I'm sorry if I'm forgetting those ladies off the top of my head. But yes, there's many. Karissa, I'm sure, might have some suggestions as well.
Honestly, the two I was going to suggest was Feminine Not Feminist as well, and Philosophicat. So I can't really think of many off the top of my head.
We'll make sure that we put your Telegram. Everyone should know this, but there are new people like Mac and Liberty who asked the question. But Jason and I, we have a website, theafterparty.tv, catalogs this show, his Going Free Sunday streams, and sometimes Going Free's done extra shows in the week, and then sometimes other projects that we do as well. So theafterparty.tv, once this show is posted there, we'll have all the links. So we have 3.5 years of shows. You could, if you like the topic, you can search topics. What the ladies here spoke about today, homesteading, homeschooling. You could go search and see what other shows we've done with other advocates who speak about similar topics. Or if you wonder, has this person ever been on the show with Jared and Jason, go search the name. We've tried to do what we can so that even if something happens on a social media site and we're not there tomorrow, it's still archived and protected. The videos are embedded in such a way where it's not reliant on a social media site. Yes, we link to the YouTube show, like what you're watching now when it's done, but embedded in the post is actually not a YouTube link. So we're doing what we can to leave a record and leave a trail. We're not ashamed of what we do. We're proud of what we're doing, and we want people to be able to see what our people were talking about in 2019, 2020, 21, what we were learning together, what we were building together.
Mm-hmm. Well said, brother. Let's see what else we have here. We have a financial gift from the one and only. Oh, but you know what? It's not showing me what it was, how much it was. I'll go back to the back end and see that one in just a minute. First, I will get to Nathaniel Westerman, financially gifting $3. And he writes here, hey, NWG, we have 2 eyes to see, 2 ears to listen, 2 hands to hold. But why only 1 heart? Because the other one was given to someone else for us to find. That's beautifully written. Thank you so much for that, Nathaniel Westerman, and the $3 financial gift. And we have, let's see, some other questions in the question widget while I go, and we'll answer while I go back and look for what imminent rain financially gifted. We have Roy has supplied us a question for, did we get to this one? This is from Buddy Duddyful. Says, I wonder what Karissa and Sarah think about the ingestion of microplastics via plastic containers, utensils, and packaged food. Either of you?
Yeah, it's definitely a concern, and we should try to limit the plastic use. That's anything the plastic touches our food. We should try to limit that extremely. For instance, there's glass or stainless steel water bottles that you could drink out of, and we never drink out of plastic. I never ever have given my children those plastic sippy cups. That's just me. I've just started them off on itty bitty little glass mason jars, and from the time they're wanting water or whatnot, they know how to drink out of glass jars. Of course, you could do a ceramic mug for children as long as it's lead free and whatnot, but yeah, try to limit that. There's glass food storage containers that we use for like putting leftover food in and stuff like that. And especially you never want to put hot food right into a plastic container that leaches that the dioxins.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, I remember reading something years ago from some author, which I'm not going to bother naming now because I don't want to promote him, but interestingly, this man wrote extensively on the real issues with pollution, like the real nitty gritty. And it's something like there was some study that basically showed that like 7 in 10 women had dioxins in their breast milk, like in the United States, like they're on average. And that was like, oh gosh, 15 or 20 years ago. And I was reading that. So that is like anytime we can decrease those dioxins coming into our body, it's really important. And then if you feel like you've had an overload, Karissa and I talk a lot about this, don't we, Karissa, about doing cleanses. So there's lots of different types of fasts and cleanses that you can do to kind of remove like heavy metals and dioxins and stuff like that. Our ancestors, for instance, in Northern Europe, were doing sauna. If you have access to a sauna, I highly recommend that for cleansing and sweating out some of the toxins. But I didn't know if Karissa wanted to add to that or not, but yeah.
You do have to be mindful if you're doing something like that. If you're nursing, it's not necessarily recommended to do detoxes or cleanses like that. But I just thought I'd throw that out there as a disclaimer. But I think a huge, if you're on a non-toxic journey, one of the top things you should really look into getting is a water filtration system, like a Berkey, or I think the other one is ProPure, which is important because the plastics in the water bottles are terrible. Switching from, say, the Teflon pans to cast iron, because that is another great option. there was something else I thought of when you were talking to Sarah. When you were talking about putting hot food in plastic containers. Another big thing is microwaves are a huge thing that you should get rid of because of obvious reasons. But when you're heating up things, and especially a plastic container or even to-go containers, it releases so many chemicals that are terrible for you, along with what a microwave already does. But also, the going more into clothing a little bit, like the flame retardant clothings, like your polyesters and everything, are things that we really try to avoid. Which I know it wasn't really a clothing question, but that was something that came to mind too that a lot of people don't think about. Because what made me think of that was when you were talking about, I think I know the study you're talking about, Sarah, about the toxins that were found in breast milk. A lot of that was linked to a lot of the flame retardant products that are in children's clothing, like all those really cute fuzzy pajamas with the polyester, the bedding, pillows, blankets, sheets, all of that. And it can be overwhelming, but yeah, go ahead.
Really quickly, Karissa, like we're talking about formaldehyde. Like if people want to understand, like this isn't just like some woo-woo like conspiracy theory. I mean, there's literally formaldehyde, which is used for putting in embalming fluid, that is in these flame retardants that children's pajamas are often treated with. If they are not made out of cotton, linen, or wool, if they're polyester, they are almost always treated with flame retardants. So yeah.
That might be a business too. I know some of our people are doing clothing lines, but specifically for children. I do everything that you talk about: cast iron, not only drinking water filtration, but shower. We've talked about this before. This has come up on our show, Jason. The more that I have removed toxins from my life, the more sensitive I am when I walk into someone's home who does still have all that mainstream, those products, those chemicals, those cleaners. I can just smell in their home. They use those cleaners, or they have those shampoos in their bathroom. If I go to use the bathroom, those soaps, your body gets attenuated to it, and you say, I don't want this anymore. I have organic sheets. And you were speaking about infertility. Let's be honest. If you're going to wear anything organic, start with underwear. I've been doing more organic underwear, and the golden one, our friend Marcus, has a clothing line, Legio Gloria. I've heard him announce that he's going to soon be doing, it's men's clothing only at this point, but organic underwear, that's an important thing.
Speaking of that other the question we had earlier about another white positive female to follow, the golden one's wife, her Instagram's Julie. Well, she has a Telegram too, Julie's Wellness Tips, I believe. She puts out a lot of phenomenal content on nutrition. Particularly, we would love to have her on Hearth and Helm, but motherhood's important. So, but I thought I'd plug her in too.
She's fantastic. Very sweet. I've interacted with her a bit, and yes, Julia's wellness tips. I'm sure in Sweden they say Julia, but follow that on Instagram and Telegram as well.
All right, let's jump on over to Eminent Rain, who had financially gifted $9. Thank you so much, dear brother. He writes, Promethean hails, going to be lurking while I deliver food. So hard. Living the spirit, long live the spirit of the West. Amen to that, folks. And if you don't know, Eminent Rain just released song number 7 of the album that he is making, dedicated to telling the story of Prometheus rising. Look back just to last week's Going Free and watch that and enjoy. That's about all I have to say. It's amazing. It's over the moon amazing. We have Joseph financially gifting $5. Great to see you, Joseph. Thank you so much for that. FYI, there is a Schooner Farms website in Ohio. Don't confuse it with Sarah's at Schooner's Creek Farm. So Schooner's Farms. Do you know about this, the website?
Yes, I do. I believe that firm was just formed a couple of years ago. I wonder if they've gotten hate mail.
Oh, they probably
or perhaps they've gotten some business. But yes, I am familiar with that. Yeah, Schooner. We are Schooner Creek Farm, and there's another Schooner Creek Farm in Ohio. So
great. So folks, make sure you're at the Schooner Creek Farm. That is Sarah's. He writes on, do your due diligence. Probably going to be best to use the link off the Naturific web white positive site once it is up and running. Indeed, that will be accurate. We won't be leading you to the wrong farm. And we have over here a short question from Roy and then a bit of a longer question from Arthur. Roy asks, am I right that when a can with preserved food is damaged, even just slightly damaged, that it might release toxins or toxic substances into the interior? Do either of you know?
What is it? Are you referring to like processed preserved foods or?
Yeah, I guess so. Preserved food is what he writes. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I would definitely think so, because the processed foods are definitely something to be avoided.
I think he's talking about home canning, if I'm not mistaken.
Perhaps you can answer both.
So I do some home canning. I like to can tomatoes and salsa. That's about the extent of the canning that I do. I mean, anytime that you're cooking food for a long period of time, I mean, slowly it's going to lose some nutrients. But I think if you're starting out with high quality raw, like tomatoes, for instance, and you're doing the canning process appropriately, I always end up with beautiful, vibrant red, really nice, high quality stewed tomatoes that are certainly more nutrient dense than what I would buy off of a grocery store shelf. Now there is some issue with like a BPA. I think there may have been at one point in time an issue with BPA being in the lid part of the canning lid. Karissa, does that sound familiar to you? But I think, if I'm not mistaken, they started making them BPA free. And if not, if you're still concerned about that, I think that there are other canning lids that you can buy to, like, you know, deal with that issue. And of course, like I have to say, do your own research and consult like Rodal's canning instructions. Don't follow mine. And botulism is a concern, but as long as you follow the instructions properly, then it shouldn't be an issue.
Very good. Well, now I know why I'm so messed up. I always hate out of the cans that were dented. We have Arthur here, and he's asking, could Sarah and Karissa talk about their attitude to spirituality and how they personally relate to divinity in a practical way? Apologies if it's too personal. Of course, if it's something you want to pass, then that's fine as well. But the question is to the two ladies.
Well, I mean, that could probably consume an entire hour and a half or 2 hour long stream. I will certainly say that, in my opinion, coming home to our ancestral faith, which is a polytheistic, fatalistic, worldview and religion, is the final red pill. That's just my opinion. We are absolutely pagan women. We follow the ways of our ancestors, of our pre-Christian ancestors. But I would, I would certainly say follow Hearth and Helm if you want to look for some links, if you're interested in that. And I will also say that, we have Christian guests on Hearth and Helm. We have Christian friends, and we believe in unity, very strongly believe in unity. And we do not participate in, arguing and debating. That's not really our place and kind of what we're here to do. So we don't get down with the whole Christian pagan strife. It's just not what we're about. So,
Amen.
Karissa, did you want to take a turn?
No, I was just going to say that, we're about unite. We have, pagans and Christians alike on our show. And like Sarah said, we've got a lot of enemies out there. It's not really our place to try to form even more of a division with things. So we definitely, welcome either side.
Well, Jared?
I just had a quick housekeeping thing. I know some people said in the chat, but if Mac and Liberty is still here or anyone else interested in the question she asked a little bit ago, of course, Lana Locktaff, half of Red Ice, is another woman who is doing fabulous things, and she has for many years. I don't know how active it is now, but she has Lana's Llama, an organic clothing line as well, since we've been talking about clothing. I got my mom a blouse from her a couple of years ago. Funny enough, my mom texted me. She wore it a couple of days ago. Very high quality stuff. Everything that our people, all the products and services our people are putting out there's integrity behind the business. There's quality to the items. And, that alone speaks volumes. But of course, she is someone to check out as well. Just wanted to make sure everyone had that bit of information, as obvious as it might sound. But there are always new people, and they maybe they don't know about Lana.
I am so glad that you mentioned that, because Lana was one of the first commentators, white positive commentators that I started listening to back in 2015. Yes. And she is an amazing woman, and I have a huge amount of respect for her. She's an absolute sweetheart. So I am so glad that you remembered to mention her.
Well, I was reminded by the chat, so thank you, chat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed, we want to try to get everybody. When you're thinking about female content creators, when it comes to Lana, it's easy to miss, because she and Henrik are a thing. So it's just, you can't like separate Lana. But yes, she does do those that other work, and she does it supremely well. I have some of her clothing, and it is fantastic. It's been a magnificent tap today, ladies and gentlemen, hasn't it? And we're going to we had so much more to talk about over the course of the show today. And so we're going to, without question, have these two wonderful ladies back and continue the conversation. I mean, I can see this being a semi-regular thing, because we all about creating a people out of our deracinated race. This is not just some political thing. It is not just some religious thing. It's not just some ideological thing. It is a people, and we're going to have differences of opinions about things that are the kind of things that we can overlook now, so that we can recapture our destiny within ourselves, and then our larger destiny as a people. And once we do, we will be able to settle everything equitably without any issue whatsoever. Make no mistake that there has been the hot iron prod of the anti-white at our backs for a very long time, much longer than we've been alive, and stirring the pot and getting us fired up at each other. And we are going to put white well-being ahead of everything else. So that won't be able to happen ever again. When they try to stir up one group against another, we will instantly be able to identify the anti-whites for who and what they are. There are some folks we have to thank tonight, everybody who financially gifted, and we got one more I'll be reading in just a moment. And thank you to every single one of you who financially gifted. Thank you to every single one of you who participated in the live chat. And hello to everybody who will be watching in the replay. We are White Positive. If you're brand new to what we're doing here, everyone is welcome to participate, irrespective of their immutable characteristics in service to white well-being. And we hope they will participate. We love our people. Our focus is on us. We want to thank Nate Terrific and Roy and for Null and Porridge and Brand Danger for doing the magnificent moderating, the intrepid moderating that they were doing today. Thank you all, champions in service to white well-being. Of course, a huge thank you to our wonderful guests here, Sarah and Karissa. They have been splendid. And always remember to give our ladies a little extra support, an extra good word of support, because the ladies are more so targets of anti-whites than even the guys are, because they know, the anti-whites, that if they can run the women off, there'll never be a heartbeat to a movement. So there can't be a people. As a consequence, you need women and men to come together to form the family, and then the family rearing children in the faith and the ideology, in the practice of going free, for example, becomes the heartbeat that continues the people, rather than what we've had for so many decades in the past, which is just like this focus on trivialities ultimately, and people orbiting in and orbiting out. That's why they want to run the ladies off, and we can't let them do it anymore. So give an extra add a girl to our ladies here tonight, and every time you come across one of our female content creators. Of course, a big thank you to the wonderful Mr. Jared George and all the magnificent work that he does in service to white well-being. And he has a great song, brand new song out that is absolutely amazing as well, folks. Be here with us on Sunday because we are going to be interviewing the great Mr. Jared George about that song, that very song, and it's going to be a scintillating time. And now we will jump on over, as I'll just take a quick look here, because it's a good thing I did. The great Rory has financially gifted $3 on the way out here. Thank you so much, Rory. And writing, for those in the UK, Jody K and our Claire launched their new all-natural handmade soap company last week. 10% off profits go to bee conservation. Check out, and then he has a link here on Entropy, so everybody on Entropy can jump on over there, and if any of the mods are there, they can grab that link and throw it in the live chat. as we are wrapping up. Thank you so much, Rory, for that, mentioning that, because we did mention that briefly over on PWR this week and completely slipped my mind. And finally, we have over here on our way out, the great Zero Talon. Ladies and gentlemen, get out your raucous emojis. And you know why? Because the great Zero Talon, writing only this with his financial gift. Late gift, let's go free. And he financially gifts with that $50 US. God bless you, brother. And God bless every single one of you who are in service to White Wellbeing. We look forward to seeing you all again